Well, the Broncos almost pulled off an upset for the ages against the Penrith Panthers on Thursday night. Ben Crook scored the fastest try in the world in Hull KR's 1-point win over the Huddersfield Giants, whilst Hull FC and the Warrington Wolves play out an intense draw at the KCOM Stadium. Yes, hello and welcome back to the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. I am Connor Marcellus alongside Mark Henry, and today we bring you the debrief of the NRL round 6 and 7, as well as the Betfred Super Leagues round 3 and 4. And we start off today with the Broncos and the Penrith Panthers.
An upset could have definitely happened on that Thursday night game with the Broncos Panthers up there at Suncorp Stadium. But in the end, the Panthers come out victorious, 20 points to 12.
I definitely think everyone underestimated how that result would go. I think we talked about last week, Penrith were going to win 13 plus in this game. We just thought the Broncos didn't have anything to throw at really what is the Premiership heavyweights at this point in time.
That is very true. But with Kevin Walters dropping Milford and Tessie New for last week, was that the difference possibly? We don't know. It could be read into a bit earlier, but if they keep how they are at the moment, with them two players out for a little bit longer, it could be positive things to come, possibly.
Well, they still had that idea of trying to target Penrith's left-hand edge and try and reach for Xavier Coates. But I'll tell you, they actually surprised Penrith because with all that focus of them trying to shift things right to try and get to Coates, they weren't paying attention with their middle defence. And that was the very clever thing Brodie Croft did. I think he understood that the Broncos' game plan was go right, try and get a bomb up to Xavier Coates. They already got one off Pangai Jr. But the real clever thing they did then, they then switched it back for the middle with Ethan Bollimore, and they caught the middle defence off guard. And I think that was very smart of what the Broncos were doing. They made it seem like they were predictable, then all of a sudden shift back inside. Penrith's middle defence was caught completely unaware.
So messed with Penrith's heads, in other words. What I found was that pretty much after every tackle set was complete, the Broncos always going for Brian Toto, and the Panthers always going for Xavier Coates. That's what I personally feel like. They did put Toto a bit under pressure for a few of those kicks, and they did force a few errors from Penrith, and they capitalised on it by scoring.
It was very close within the final 5 minutes, you'd have to say, when the score's locked at 12-all, but then what can you say about Nathan Cleary? Second player in the NRL to kick the 2-point field goal and then backed it up with a try of his own. Of course, on top of the try, assist, the one line break, and the 3 from 4 goals he converted. But Penrith were really tested in that middle part after getting off to that quick start, making a meal of the Broncos' right edge defensively.
Yes, definitely so. Look, I thought, everyone would have thought that the Broncos would have not given it to Penrith, as in Penrith would have absolutely belted them by, 24 plus. But no, it was a close contest. Taveta Pangai though, when he scored his try, he was doing acrobatics.
He was doing a winger's dive, and I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing,
mate? He scored to help Broncos get to the lead at 1 point. So why not have some fun while you're scoring out in a win? Really, every single time a team took the lead, other than Penrith's their final result, and when Penrith got out to a 4-point lead, it was at least a 2-point lead for the majority of the match. See, Broncos got a penalty goal, which was a 2-point lead. Then Penrith bounced back, missed the conversion, it was a 2-point lead. So it was really a tit-for-tat game.
Well, another game that proved to be tit-for-tat was our first of the Friday night games, the Newcastle Knights 26, getting up over the Cronulla Sharks 22.
Yes. You could say that there might have been maybe another upset on the cards if the Sharks did beat the Knights, considering all the dramas that I had the week led into it. But the Knights pulled together and shot out to a win. Well, not shot out to a win, but they won after losing 3 in a row.
I think close to it. Yes. West Tigers round 3, the Dragons on Easter Sunday, and then they got their asses handed to them by the Gold Coast.
Yeah, so it was good to have a win for the Knights and back on their home turf.
Well-
What else could you want?
Well, the Sharks, they really they didn't get up early. I mean, they sort of had that one hint of hope through Jesse Ramian trying to go at the Knights' left edge, because I think we both know Bradman Best is still trying to get match fitness back into him, so they decided to take advantage of that. But you got to say, the Sharks, they really almost dug deep in the second half after fighting their way back from an 8-point deficit to practically tie the game up, and I think lead at one point as well. It could have. This is a result that really could have gone either way here.
Yes, it could have gone either way. Especially, well, you think the Knights would have had it when they went into to the Sheds 14-6 at the break, in front. But Cronulla came out in the second half firing by crossing over from Britton to Cora, and with Townsend successfully kicking the goal. But after that, the Knights responded by Brodie Jones to Pono converting before
Kalen Ponga himself,
yeah,
providing the match winner. I believe either 22-20 with 3 minutes to go. That was practically the match-winning try for the Knights.
But before Pono scored that, there were two quick tries in succession for the Sharks to make the home fans that little bit nervous.
Down the left edge of the Sharks, with really Matt Moylan just being a point of difference on the Sharks' left edge, even without Wade Graham. But the way Kalen Ponga scored that match-winning try, that was just something else, wasn't it?
It definitely was something else. And to be in his second game back, the scored a match-winning try, he just pretty much went back there and weaved his magic and got them home.
Yes, well, something that didn't get at home was the Sydney Roosters going down to the Melbourne Storm 20-4. They were basically scoreless, the Roosters, right up until the full-time siren.
Practically, yeah. Everyone thought, including myself, thought this is the game of the round. It's going to be nice and close and what we wanted in a rugby league match. But no. Roosters were not in it. What was the go? We don't know. But it didn't help when Victor Radley got marched for 10 in the 13th minute.
Oh, no, it didn't. And Melbourne just found that way to break the Roosters down through the middle. I mean, that Harry Grant try that was scored from dummy half, that's not what the Roosters do.
No.
They don't concede tries through the middle.
No. It's usually around there. Well, really, when they let tries go, it's because of not poor defense, but like a little bit of a weak spot. But their defense is usually quite strong. But the Storm somehow managed to break it, and yeah, and like you said, they didn't score until
James Tedesco putting up that chip kick for Matic Avalu.
Like right at the end, and they missed the conversions kick. So
it really has to come to a point that the Roosters' injury crisis is not really helping their case, and I think people are suggesting that Siosiwa Taukeiaho and Jared Waerea-Hargreaves are a bit touch and go at the moment, on top of the fact that they're still missing, that they have got no access to Luke Cleary for the rest of the year, and Boyd Cordon is still stood down until probably late in May.
That's true.
So they're still walking a bit under strength at the moment, the Roosters, but they should really be performing better.
Well, yes, especially come up against another heavyweight for the premiership in Melbourne.
This is the
should have been a lot closer.
This is the third time in 3 weeks that the Roosters have had a slow start. When you think about it, you include the Rabbitohs in that, because that's when it started. The Rabbitohs got off to a fast start, and the Roosters were unable to cover. Then tragedy strikes when losing Luke Cleary. And since then, you've had the Warriors get out to a 16-12 of lead. You had the Sharks in a commanding position, but failed to go on with the job. And now that they've gone up against a contender side like the Melbourne Storm and they got behind, they just don't go on and win it. They really have to start fast to really give themselves a chance with the rookie halves combination that they do have.
Yes, the Roosters went down let 20 points in, but at halftime it was only 4-0. So the Roosters could have easily spun that round if they got on the board early on in the second half, but it didn't happen at all. So the Storm just ran in 3 tries by Hughes, Pappenhausen, and Grant, with Pappenhausen kicking the only 2 from 3 goals from the tries.
Yes, well, from an ambush in Melbourne to an ambush in Mudgee. My God, how wrong were we about this result? The Manly Sea Eagles downing the Gold Coast Titans 36 points to nil. Back when we did our round 4 and 5 debrief, I said it was the David Fafita show as he just terrorized the Knights. Well, this week, it's the Tom Trbojevic show on his first game back. This man, what is this man if he is not human? Just the way he lifted Manly over the Titans.
Well, I don't know what you'd call him. You could call him anything you want, but yeah. No, but he in his comeback game, he played really well. Like, he came back, played like he hadn't been out, I feel. And it really did help Manly. And also what I think helped Manly was that they did come off a golden point win against the Warriors the week prior, so that momentum and confidence carried on. But for the Titans, they weren't even in the contest. Like, the hell...
They were... I think it is safe to say the Titans were bullied by Manly. I mean, you had Tom Trbojevic making breaks left, right and centre. You just didn't know which way to look with him. One minute he's setting up tries for Jason Saab. The next minute he's helping a good backline movement that sets up Ruben Garrick in the left corner. They were just riding the Titans roughshod.
Yes.
With the momentum through the middle.
Yeah. Titans, where had their form gone? Like, they've been playing pretty good footy all season, come here and they went nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Which is not like them at all, but hopefully they can turn things around.
I think it's just an error of complacency. They were in the game early, but once Manly got on the board, thanks to Tom Trbojevic with his influence on the game, having his hand in the third of the half of the tries where he was either directly or non-directly involved in setting them up.
Yeah. Well, we had Corey Parker. Not Corey Parker. What am I saying?
Wrong Parker, mate. Wrong Parker. It's Brad Parker.
Brad Parker scoring. Ruben Garrick with a double. Jason Saab with a double. And one with Tommy Turbo himself getting one. Coming into the break, it was 26-0. Yeah. And then they scored another 10 in the second half. So they're pretty much in control of the match from start to finish.
Well, the Titans really need to figure out how they're going to address this when they meet the Rabbitohs up next. And speaking of the Rabbitohs, we have their results. 18-14 getting up over the top at the West Tigers.
In a golden point thriller.
Oh my God. The last 5 minutes of that game, that was just from another world. Just what were we watching?
Well, Adam Reynolds, a 2-point field goal to level the game up, which ended up going a golden point. George Burgess.
Ron Burgess twin. You're doing it again, you know.
They're twins. I get them mixed up all the time. Tom Burgess crashed over, but then we thought he knocked on. The referee went to
play on. Luke Brooks runs 100 metres to score what he thinks is the match-winning try.
Which he did award, but then went to the bunker to review after, which got overturned and went
because Tom Burgess scored first.
And it went 4 points the other way. So, to me, instead of being the Storm Roosters game around, I think the Rabbitohs Tigers
I definitely agree with the West Tigers and the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And you got to say, Tom Burgess, without the Rabbitohs, without him there, the Rabbitohs don't win as many games as you think they do. This is a bloke with 206 running meters, 3 tackle breaks, 1 offload, and the match-winning try.
Yes.
He is the underrated man in the South forward pack. And if he wasn't there, I think they sorely miss him or don't win as many close games that they have won.
That is very true. But Tigers, they need to learn how to finish games off too. Like, they were in it. They were in it, no doubt about that. Like, I think going into the break, it was 6-6 at half time. And then it was just Tigers shot out to the lead, and then somehow South came back and won it in extra time. But other than Burgess scoring the golden point try for South, Gagai and Murray were the other 2 scorers, with Adam Reynolds kicking 2 from 4 and a 2-point field goal. And for the Tigers, Dane Laurie and Luke Garner crossed with Adam Dillon kicking both goals and a penalty goal.
And it still wasn't enough for the Tigers.
No, it wasn't. Somehow it wasn't enough. But like how the Tigers played last week against... I can't remember who they played last week before Souths.
They played last week in round 5. They went up against, if you give me just a tick, to bring things up.
Cowboys at Leichhardt Oval.
Yes, against North Queensland at Leichhardt Oval.
See, they just lost that game as well. But they had to come back and work harder for it. This one, they were in the game from pretty much half, for the whole majority of the match. So
up until the final 5 minutes.
Well, yes. So the Tigers are working on it, as we can progressively tell.
And the final game in our Saturday triple header, the Parramatta Eels 35 downing the Canberra Raiders 10.
In the nation's capital, which...
They have not had a good record in the past, but the way the Eels... Because I honestly believed, my logic was that the Raiders got knocked about by Penrith and Ricky was looking for a response at home in front of a capacity crowd of about 21,000. So he was hoping for a response. They were in it in the first half. They're only down by 2.
Yes.
After George Williams scored that brilliant try that he did. But the Eels they just came back from nowhere. It's just like brain snap against St. George Illawarra, and then they're just like, all right, let's knuckle down, let's get back to business and play our game and with power through the middle. What better way to say that than Isaiah Papali'i just running over the top of Josh Papali'i? If that's not power to you, I don't know what is.
I'd say it now, Isaiah Papali'i, buy of the season.
And he's only on $150,000, so that just makes it even more remarkable when you consider some of the other big money signings.
And how many years is he on the contract there for?
I think it's a 2-year deal, but considering that Ryan Madison has continually been left out due to his ongoing concussion issues after that cheap shot he copped on Felice Kafusi back in round 2, Papali'i has gotten exactly what he wanted since he took the pay cut to leave the Warriors, but he's been rewarded in kind because he's been starting more games on a regular basis.
And scoring tries.
Yes. That left edge of the Eels, even though that they've made the switch, they're starting to gel again. And they were just they just rode roughshod over the Canberra Raiders. And it's not easy to do, to ride roughshod over the Raiders.
Well, no, it's not. Especially also at home too, with their home backing behind them more and that. But no, pretty much the second half is when the Raiders started going downhill, because they were in the first half because Rapinoe scored and Williams scored, but that would put them to 10, and then Eels led to 12 at the break. And then second half, Parramatta kept on piling on the points.
From Sean Lane to Clint Gufferson.
Yes,
I will just verify.
Marnie.
Oh yeah, going through the middle.
And then, like you said, Papali'i, second trying Moses. Brendan Ditali to 6 from 7 for the night. That's including penalty goals and a 1-point field goal.
And then, of course, the pièce de résistance, Clint Gufferson scoring with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, that's just put
the captain getting over after another good effort at the back for Parramatta.
Yeah. That put the nail in the coffin for the Raiders, really, I feel.
Well, speaking of nails and coffins, the New Zealand Warriors getting up over your St. George Illawarra 20 points to 14.
Yes, it was. I'd say it come down to goal kicking. Lomax was off all night. He only had one from 4, I think.
I think that was the general assumption that I sort of came to, that it was a very tight first half. First with Harris going in through the middle, and then Paul Turner getting set up after Cody Ramsey opened up the scoring for the day off Jack Bird's brilliant hands, I would imagine, with the 1 try assist, the 7 tackle breaks, and running for 134 metres.
Yes. And then you had the other try score after Cody Ramsey for the drag. Well, sorry, hang on, I got that wrong. Well, Dufty scored. Did he not?
Yeah,
yes.
With 20 minutes to go, he scored.
And Ramsey got
only for 6 minutes later, Tuivasa-Sheck to do what Tuivasa-Sheck does best, just win you the game.
Yes. I don't know what went wrong for the Dragons. Like I said, it probably went down to the goal kicking, really, because Cody Nicarima got 4 from 4. That included the penalty goal as well. And New Zealand were in front 12-8 at half time. And the only time that they lost the lead was when Dufty crossed for his try. I'm pretty sure.
Well, they've done. The Dragons have done very well to go at the Warriors' edges, but they've left their middle completely undefended to the likes of Harris and Tuivasa-Sheck, which I think needs to be addressed going forward.
Well, especially heading to their next game on Anzac Day against the Roosters. You don't want to have a leaky defence and then a leaky middle coming up against the top side like the Roosters.
And speaking of leaky defences, our final result of NRL Round 6, we have the North Queensland Cowboys 30 downing the Bulldogs 18.
Only in the last few minutes of the match. Because the Dogs were in it, you could say, all match. But they were a player down thanks to Jack Hetherington getting sent off after ripping Valentine Holmes' head off.
Yeah, it didn't look pretty. And given his record at the NRL judiciary, it doesn't help the fact that he's going to be sitting down for 5 weeks.
Yes. But the Dogs stayed in the game. It was 6-6 at half time. Thanks to Colefield and
ran off of Tony. Again, off Jack Hetherington with that good offload.
Yes. But with 10 to go, Dogs only 6 points down with a player down. And it looked like they were scoring, but the bunker intervened and a offside by Nick Kotrick. Oh,
well,
pretty much.
Despite the fact that the Dogs actually had more ball in possession and less errors with the ball, that missed tackles will still be proving big time because the Cowboys made 15 errors all up in that game, and they made 7 ruck infringements, which I think would have led to 6 again, and calls as well. But defensively, missed tackles cost the Dogs with the left edge with Carl Felt, Shane Wright, I believe it was, at the end of everything. Mitch Dunn. But the left edge really needs to be addressed for Trent Barrett, despite the fact that we fought our way back into that game at 24-18. We just did not do enough to get up over the top of the Cowboys.
No, but like I said, if that offside didn't occur, they could have been in and sealed the victory for the first of the season. But
we would have gotten to 24-all, I would imagine. But whether or not we could have sealed the victory after that point, it
looked like that. Well, it looked like the Dogs were near the end. I feel like the better side in some parts, but the Cowboys had to score at the end to put the game to bed, basically.
Well, that's exactly what they have done, and that means North Queensland are sitting comfortably now, back-to-back wins and 2-4 on the ladder, whilst Canterbury remain
0-6.
Yes, thank you for accentuating the point.
You're very welcome. For some, back to the Cowboys, they scored via obviously Kyle Felt, Reece Robson, Ben Condon, Jake Granville, and Mitch Dunn, with Valentine Holmes converting all the goals. Kyle Flanagan and Tui Katoa scoring alongside Runoff Tony, with Kyle Flanagan kicking the first conversion of the night, but then the other two were done by Jake Averillo. So, bit of a shake-up there in the goal-kicking stocks.
That sort of needs to be addressed going forward because we've had Nick Meaney come through, we've had Carl Flanagan and Jake Averillo. When is it going to come to the point where Trent Barrett's going to say, you're going to be my full-time goal kicker and you're my first choice? We can't undo this. I mean, the Roosters sort of have to be forced into that situation.
They have to. They've got no choice to.
Jason with Talkiaho not being able to play the whole game week in, week out, but they really have to consider.
Tedesco's poor.
No, he's not the best at goal kicking, James Tedesco. He's very good at other things, but he's not on this front. So they really need to decide, the Dogs, a first choice goal kicker.
I thought the first choice goal kicker was Kyle Flanagan for the season.
No, exactly.
He kicked pretty much all the goals so far, but unless he had a bit of a niggle niggling injury that might have prevented him, but who knows?
Yes, who knows indeed. Well, that's the end of our NRL talk for round 6. We now move on to round 7. We begin the Anzac round between the Penrith Panthers and the Newcastle Knights.
Team news first before we say our predictions. Penrith have yet again made no changes. As for Newcastle, Heimel Hunt is replaced by Stafford Toller, and that's the only change.
Considering Penrith's very good form overall, this will be an interesting battle of the fullbacks, you would have to say, between Stephen Crichton and Kalen Ponga in his third game back from injury.
Mm. But being played out of Penrith, the record there for Penrith is next
They
level
have not
stuff.
lost a home game at Penrith, I believe, in the last 2 years.
Yes, so their home record's very, very good there.
And the form lines, you have to understand, the Knights think that they have a chance with this, considering the fact that the Broncos did push Penrith all the way until the 75th minute, when Nathan Cleary took charge. But I have questions about the right edge of the Knights defensively still, especially with Kickout and Jerome Luai causing havoc down that side. I think that will be somewhere they need to address big time.
Yes.
And the other part of that is Api Coruscant and Dylan Edwards are both listed in the reserves for the Panthers. So it could be very well ahead of tomorrow night that Edwards and Coruscant are called in via the bench, and that means Penrith would be back at full strength against the Knights.
I don't think they'll let them. I think they'll give it another week, and then come next week, they will be back to full strength with Coruscant starting back at hooker, and who was the other player?
Stephen Crichton.
No, who's come back from injury, Coruscant and
Dylan Edwards.
They'll both come back. I don't think next week. This week, I'll say next week.
Well,
so the Knights may have a slight chance of winning this one.
Penrith's left edge would have to be one of the most in-form left edges in the Premiership. Hands down.
Arguably, yeah.
And the Knights still have a lot of injury concerns as well. I mean, nothing against Blake Green, but they need Mitchell Pearce out there on the paddock with them. And they're still missing Lachlan Fitzgibbon as well, although Mitchell Barnett has done a remarkable job in the second row, but I don't see a clear way for Newcastle to try and match it with Penrith in the middle or in the halves.
No, I think it'll be a Penrith victory by 13 plus. To be precise, probably I'm going to say a 14-point victory for Penrith.
14 points you're going?
Knights will be there or thereabouts, but not enough. But Penrith, as you know, have been too strong. But I think Penrith will win 14 points.
I definitely think Penrith will win. I think that is a given. But I think there will definitely be questions about their defence and their resolve after the whole talk of them being arrogant or walking around the league with this arrogance on their shoulder because they're the team that's sitting 5-0 at the moment. They're top of the ladder. They're looking like they're early favourites for the Premiership. That they think they're invincible at the moment, that no one can knock them off their perch. I think Newcastle will probably try and go toe-to-toe with Penrith, but I think 20 minutes to go, I think Penrith will take charge again if they are in a reasonable position. So I'm going to say Penrith, but I think this will be a 1-12 victory for them.
Fair enough. Now, Titans-Rabbitohs up on the Gold Coast on the first of the Friday night games. No Tino Fa'asuamaleaui for the Titans. So Fadawaka replaces him. McIntyre's on the bench. Anthony Don's named. So Jonas Pearson goes to reserves. And
Philip Sami's pushed back to reserves as well. Whilst a big blow for the Rabbitohs with both Latrell Mitchell and Josh Mansour both ruled out. Mansour due to injury and Latrell's enforced due to suspension. Alex Johnston now starts at fullback with Dane Gagai shifting to the wing, Stephen Masters coming into the centres, and Jackson Paulo named on the wing as well, with Kian Kolamatangi named in the second row ahead of Jacob Host, who has been bumped down to the reserves again.
As it has been for the bulk of the season, Kalula Matagi and Jacob Hose seem to be like the swapping starting and reserves all year. If the Titans performed how they did against Manly, the South should run over them. But with no Latrell Mitchell, how did South perform?
They
That's the
got
big
very
question.
lucky against West Tigers. Everyone would have to agree that the Tigers played exceptionally well against South, and Gold Coast have not lost a home game since September last year.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, it is only a small sample of 4 games, but they are on a good winning run nevertheless.
They are. But how will they go without Tino?
I think the Titans forward pack can still match it at the moment, but it'll be a very interesting thing with the class difference between Gold Coast and South Sydney, because even though you take Latrell Mitchell out of the side, Alex Johnston is still a very capable at fullback as he is scoring tries on the wing. So it's not really a major loss for the Bunnies, but it will decide how they perform on whether they can win the premiership or not, with Latrell's missing for at least 3 weeks.
Yes. Fodawaker's not a bad replacement, though.
Oh, no. Fodawaker's still...
Whenever he's played pretty good footy as well, so...
Not to mention, he's still coming off the high of being a Queensland Origin star, I believe, in last year's series.
I believe so. This one could go either way, I feel. But I'm going to tip the Rabbits to get over him in a 1-12 margin to win by 4.
The thing will be, I think Justin Holbrook will be looking at their edge defences. With no Latrell Mitchell, both the left and the right side edges in attack have been slightly disrupted, with Masters and Gagai forming a new left side edge and Jackson Paulo coming in with Campbell Graham on the right-hand side. So it's going to be a big test for Adam Reynolds, because he's going to be marked up against David Fafita, regardless of what happens.
Big man and little man doesn't usually end well for the little man.
So it's going to come down in the forwards on this one. And I think, given that they got out of jail against the Tigers, I think South Sydney will do exactly that. Get out of jail against the Titans. And I'm going to say the Rabbitohs 1-12.
So both on the same side of the fence. Now, we're heading up north to TIO Stadium in Darwin for the Eels versus the Broncos Clash. The only really changes for the Eels is Dylan Brown returns, meaning Will Smith goes to the bench, and Hipgrave to the reserves.
As for the Brisbane Broncos, a couple of changes being made. Richie Kennard drops out of the side with the return of Herbie Farnworth into the centres. Corey Oates, Brodie Croft and Tom Dearden retain their play aces after the loss against the Panthers, whilst Danny Levi, freshly signed from the Queensland Cup over the week, so he will now make his Brisbane debut off the bench, with John Asiata dropping to the reserves.
I'm going to say now, finally Danny Levi gets back into the NRL and someone's giving him another shot. You can't leave him out of the NRL. He is a top dummy.
Given the way he played for Manly when they lost Manasseh Fainu to the no-fault stand-down policy and Api Coruscant's departure, Danny Levi was the only recognised dummy half they had at Brookvale. And then they let him go after 1 year, which I think was a genuine disservice.
Yes, very much so. Because he's a very, very capable player and he's quick. 2 out of dummy half. So.
And given the recent criticism of Jake Turpin, I think this could be a very smart move by Kevy, just to try and balance it out. Turpin's defence with sort of a bit of ruck speed Levi could potentially generate.
Yes.
And with a middle third like Lodge, Haas and Carrigan working their butts off in the middle, he'll like that platform he gives them.
Yes. But they are coming up they are coming against Parramatta. But Eels up at Darwin has been a pretty good record. So it's the Eels know the ground. You could say, well, the Broncos don't know the ground at all. So we have to wait and see what happens there. With Dylan Brown returning alongside Mitchell Moses, that's surely going to boost them even more. And
the way the Eels played against the Raiders, they'll know what to expect from the Broncos this time, and it won't be a repeat of round 1. The Eels know exactly what Brisbane are going to throw at them, and they'll be prepared this time.
unless Brisbane do what they did against Penrith and go one way and then switch back the other way. That's the only thing that might catch Eels off guard. The Broncos could give it to them, I feel. You got Levi coming in, the backup confidence of what they had last week. Yes, it's a bit of a tough one to pick, but I'd say Eels will win in a 1-12 margin and win by 2.
Well, I definitely think the Broncos definitely stuck it to Penrith, but they still lacked the polish to get over the top of them at the back end. And I think the Eels will do the same here, but I think the Eels, the way they play, and this groove they've got themselves back into, with their hard running, especially with Isaiah Papali'i going up against Pangai Jr. and Mike Acevo marked up against Coates, I think the Eels run away again, 13-plus winners.
Yep, that's a fair margin, you could say. Now, Sharks v Dogs. Big news for the Sharks as Sean Johnson makes his long-awaited comeback via the bench. A new signing, Will Chambers, is amongst the reserves list. Josh Dugan returns into the centres. So Wilton goes back to the second row with Jack Williams to their bench.
As for the Dogs, there have been mass changes again. And Jack Hetherington, suspended for 5 weeks, means that Luke Thompson has moved from lock forward to join the front row with Sione Katoa and Dylan Napa. Chris Smith comes into the second row with Corey Waddell shifting to lock forward. Bradley Dietz, Ava Siamanafanai and Matt Dury all join Renoff Atoni on the interchange, whilst Lachlan Lewis and Ofahiki Ogden join in the reserves with Joe Stimson and Nick Meaney, with Jackson Torpenny also ruled out through injury.
Thoughts on this one? The Sharks nearly had a victory against Newcastle. The Dogs nearly had a victory as well against the Cowboys. So, being at Cogra, I'm assuming it's at Cogra.
It is at Cogra, yes.
The Dogs, well, they've been there before in a trial match, and that's where that Moylan, Kennedy, Mulatalo combination started linking up well. So, what the Dogs have been playing the last few weeks, they're getting points on the board. So, they could be an upset.
Well, you can't knock the Dogs for not trying. They have been trying. They've really tried to dig in their heels, but just against big sides, they get behind early and then they just get run off over in the last 20 minutes. It's case in point, round 2 against Penrith and Good Friday against Souths.
If the Dogs can fix up their last 20 minutes, they could win more of these games.
The big problem will be how Sean Johnson will be used, whether Josh Hannay elects to hook Moylan or Chad Townsend, given the whole recent announcements that Townsend will actually be joining the North Queensland Cowboys from 2022 onwards, or whether they seek to use Johnson in the middle of the field in conjunction with Toby Rudolph to really trouble the Dogs defensively.
Both Moylan and Townsend have been playing good footy, but out of them two, I'd say that Johnson will go into the halves in place of Moylan.
So you think Matt Moylan will get hooked for Johnson at some point?
At some point, it won't be. It'll probably be in the I'd say in the last 20 minutes to really, if the Sharks are down the Dogs, Moylan will be off. Johnson will be in to help them get over the Dogs because of how poorly the Dogs have been in the last 20 minutes. But if it's the other way around, if the Sharks are in front, it'll still be Moylan off. Johnson will be in to help seal the victory even more. As for the Dogs, with Thompson, he's been in good form at the moment with Thompson
since he came back. He's lifted the Dogs' attack that has enabled them to score tries again.
Yes, which is what the Dogs have desperately needed, considering they had a few in a row when they had nothing. Yeah.
Thinking back to the part where we scored 2 tries when we were down the man we were sent off, we could have definitely stuck it to the Cowboys at that point, and we almost did stick it to North Queensland. But error count and missed tackles will still need to be addressed defensively, considering that the Sharks have taken advantage of slow starting sides in the past, i.e., the Roosters, is to really get out to a lead early. So it's going to be seen whether the Dogs can actually run down a lead if the Sharks get out on top early.
Based on recent form, I think they can. So I'm going to say the Bulldogs to win in a 1-12 margin by 6.
Everything is telling me to tip the Sharks, but I got to think the Dogs are getting closer to a victory. So I'm going to take a big risk here. I'm going to go with my heart because you got to stick with them, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and tip the Dogs 1-12. I think if we can pull off a win, this might actually be the best chance given the whole turmoil that has been plaguing the Sharks over the last 2 weeks, especially now compounded with Townsend's defection to North Queensland.
Yes. Cowboys Raiders, another home game for the Cowboys.
Oh, well, Sticky, he really swung the axe. Josh Hodgson being the highest profile casualty of the axe being swung, with Tom Starling moved to starting dummy half. Ryan James moved into the starting pack with Josh Papali'i dropping back. Ryan Sutton starting at lock forward at the expense of Joe Tarpany. And 2 Raiders that had a little bit of controversy in the offseason, Corey Hawawira-Naira and Corey Horsburgh, have been added to the bench by Ricky Stewart.
And with Simonson out,
Sebastian
Chris comes in for another appearance for the Great Machine this year. As for the Cowboys, no changes. Still no Talamolo though, but
they haven't really needed Tamalolo, even though they haven't been winning. It's just like he was there only for half a game against Penrith, and that was it.
Pretty much. Look, Cowboys will be full of confidence. Playing at home.
I definitely North Queensland will be full of confidence at the moment.
It's coming off you could say a narrow victory, even though they won it at the death. But the Raiders will be looking to bounce back big time.
Oh, I wouldn't want to be playing the Raiders this week after Ricky's probably thrown all the chairs that weren't taken by someone, and then he probably delivered an all-time spray after losing that way to the Eels. And he has definitely sent a clear message. Perform or you're going to get dropped.
That is very true. He has said that in the past before. The Raiders have shown that they can do it without Josh Hodgson when he was out with his ACL last season.
Oh, well, Hodgson didn't, not as much getting dropped, but he has been ruled out with injury.
Well, yeah. Well, he's still out, though.
Yeah.
But they could still do it without him, though.
I definitely think,
but he has a big
even without
influence.
an experienced leader like Sia Soliola, who has also been dropped in favour of Emre Gula starting, you do not want to face this Canberra Raiders side, who now want to come out and have a point to prove.
And I think they will have that. They will prove the Cowboys that they've got the more class.
I definitely think Jack Wyden's going to put in a man-of-the-match performance with this, as he leads the Raiders to a 13-plus victory here.
Yeah, Raiders will win. I agree. Jack White will probably be the standout player, or maybe even the halves of
George Williams
as well. Because that's one of the dangerous halves in the league, I feel, at the moment.
They definitely complements each other very well.
Yes. So I'd say the Raiders will win in a 1-12 margin of 8.
Now, Anzac Day Football. We have a triple header running this year, and we start off the day with the West Tigers and the Manly Sea Eagles at Bankwest Stadium. Manly unchanged on the side that ran and in 6 tries against the Titans.
As for the Tigers, with Asu Kapawa out for the rest of the season due to an unfortunate ACL injury, Michael Cheekham comes to replace him. Joey Leilua comes back into the reserves, taking Cheekham's spot. Alex Seyfarth goes from the reserves to the bench in the slot with Tom McHaley.
Well, this has been the game that many have highlighted as being full of emotion and intensity, considering this will be the first time Josh Aloiai faces the Tigers since leaving them to join Manly.
True. It's going to be... I reckon this will... I'm not going to say it's the game of the round, but it's going to be up there. Because Tigers have shown that they can be just on the wrong end of losing. But then again, the Seagulls are coming off
a big turnaround.
A big win. And then, so it's going to be hard to predict.
Tom Trbojevic, he made that point of difference. And the Tigers know that they're going to have to do their best to try and contain Tommy Turbo.
Yeah.
Which I don't think they will do.
No.
Especially with the intensity of forwards like Sean Kepi and Taniela Paseka, who are probably amongst Manly's best forwards, or they do have. And then, of course, the impeccable Josh Schuster with his versatility of the kicking game that could really trouble the Tigers' right-hand side defensively.
Yes. I feel this game is going to come down to who's got the better record at Bankwest. That's honest.
Well, it's not the West Tigers, I can tell you that right now.
Well, Manly's, they've probably had no wins at Bankwest either. They haven't beaten Parramatta there. So they're pretty as much as bad as each other. I've got a feeling this one's got to go to Golden Point.
You think this game's going to go to Golden Point?
I just got that gut feeling that this game's going to go on Golden Point, and that the winning run of 2 that Manly are on at the moment, the Tigers will break that and win by a penalty goal, so 2 points.
Well, this will be Manly's 3rd game at Bankwest Stadium, and I think this time they will come away with a win. And I think Manly will win 1-12 on this front.
Fair enough. Now, the traditional Roosters Dragons Anzac Day game at the Sydney Cricket Ground. I love this game, but before we get into it, the team news for the Dragons is that Blake Lawrie is returning, pushing Trent Merrin out of the 17. Ben Hunt is named amongst the reserves. He maybe could be a late inclusion. I don't know.
And if he was to be, I would definitely think Braden Williami would be a casualty of this.
Dependent if Corey Norman plays or not, because he hurt his shoulder against the Warriors. So he could be a late withdrawal, and Adam Clue can go and take Norman, and then Hunt could slot straight in, but we'll have to wait to an hour before kickoff.
The biggest news for the Roosters is, apart from having Brett Morris back, will be the first game for the year for Sam Verrills, who is now officially the Roosters' first choice number 9.
Yes.
That is a big, big in. And having Victor Radley get off at the NRL judiciary, a lot of commentary about that from the critics of what they call the National Roosters League. Think about the double standards regarding Latrell Mitchell and Victor Radley, but that's the way the judiciary has ruled, so we cannot really argue with the end results of that one.
No, we can't. Also for the Roosters, Wawera Hargreaves and Takeha have been named despite not finishing off the game against the Storm.
And they have been said to be touch and go at this point in time.
Yes. Look, an Anzac Day game, I absolutely love this game. Not only because it's a traditional game, both teams bring out the best in each other. Traditionally, the Dragons do well on this day, during this game. There has been a couple of times the Dragons have lost, but traditionally they play well. But with the crisis, would you call it a crisis at the Roosters?
It's an injury crisis.
With the crisis at the Roosters, it's kind of maybe a good time to play the Roosters at the moment. But you got Sam Verrills back. Does he come back to an absolute, go straight into a game?
He's coming off an ACL injury. I don't think we'll expect anything major from Verrills apart from trying to do a good job of dummy half service for the Roosters. But given St. George Illawarra's form up until last week, the Dragons have been one of the real surprises. And I definitely think, given the way that, even without Ben Hunt, the way the Dragons have played, and announcing their top 4 intentions, I think for this moment in time, I think if they knock the Roosters off, I think there'll be no questions that the Dragons are well on their way to playing finals this year.
So you say that. I still reckon it's too early to make a call if we make the finals or not. But based on recent form, we are sending out a sign saying that we are here. We are here to make the finals. I'm going to say we are going to win. We're going to capitalise on the Roosters' slow starts, like pretty much every other team has. So we'll go out to a decent lead and we'll carry that on and win 13 plus to win by 18.
I think there will be some stiff resistance from the Roosters if they can try and move the Dragons through the middle of the field, but I think the Dragons overall, I would say that overall cohesiveness between Norman, McCulloch, and the other ex-Broncos in this Dragons lineup, and of course the ever-looming presence of Matt Duffy at the back, I think the Dragons will come away 1-12 winners.
On a traditional day. Another game that's been a traditional game on Anzac Day is the Storm v the Warriors at Amy Park in Melbourne. For the Storm are big outs as Ryan Pappenhausen is out with a shoulder injury, meaning Nicho Hynes starts after being on the bench out in the change last week. Dale Finucane is back via the bench, taking Nicho Hynes' spot.
For his first game of the year, I think good on him for finally getting back into that side.
Yeah.
The other Melbourne co-captain.
Yes, it's good to see his name back on the list.
Meanwhile, for the Warriors, there have been a lot of punishment for them. They have lost Adam Pompey, Paul Turner, and Peter Hiku. So Marcelo Montoya returns to the centres alongside back rower turned centre Jack Murchie. Josh Curran elevated into the second row with Kane Evans starting alongside Jermaine Tanoa-Brown. And Tohu Harris returning to lock forward with Evans starting.
And Fusatua's back.
That will be a big in
on the
with
wing.
David Fusatua coming back in.
So, bit of a boost. Yes, they lost 3 players, but they've gained Fusatua back, who's also a try-scoring weapon. So,
Well, he hasn't really been try-scoring lately. It's mainly been Ken Mamalo that has made the difference for the Warriors.
well, given that Fusatua's been out with injury for a week or two, they prefer the Mamala side. Who knows? In Melbourne, it's Melbourne against... the Storm in Melbourne is just unstoppable.
That would be a very blunt understatement, but that is the case with the Melbourne Storm.
The Warriors, without Pappenhausen, I don't know, because he's been probably the most informed, or one of the informed players
Amongst the top
club.
3 fullbacks that acts performance-wise this year.
Yeah. I don't know how they're going to go without him. And who's going to be the goal kicker? Munster.
Responsibility will have to fall to Cameron Munster.
Yeah, because they've said that, they haven't really said, we just assumed. Because we knew Pappenhausen was going to be the first one, so Munster will be the second one. Storm will dominate this game. Warriors in Melbourne, they've had a few wins over the last few years, but not a lot.
There have been a lot of close games, but there have also been a lot of blowouts. If the Warriors can try and go at Melbourne's right edge, it's still a little bit frail, but it has started to get better cohesively in defence. So I still have questions about Melbourne's right edge defensively, but I will think with Jack Murchie playing in the centres, Melbourne will look to be exploiting the side he's playing on and send all their traffic down that side. So I would imagine Kafusi, Remus Smith and George Jennings will be trying to throw everything they can at him and Ken Mamalo.
That is very true. But with Storm, they've got Dale Finucane back, which is a big in.
Stiffen up the middle defence as well, and I would imagine Finucane moves back to his starting role next week with Big Nelson dropping back to the bench. I'm going to say Melbourne win, but I think it's going to be a 1-12 margin.
Yeah, I agree. Finucane will be probably back into his spot and start next week. Storm I reckon will be a 13 plus margin. Given the injuries at the Warriors, Storm will be targeting that side that's got Jennings,
Remus Smith, and Felice Kafusia
Yeah.
with Jerome Hughes.
Yeah. So Storm, I feel, will win that match. 13 plus to win by 24.
Now, we move away from the NRL and we go for the Betfred Super League. The Wigan Warriors continue their winning run at the moment, downing the Leeds Rhinos 19 points to 6 at Emerald Head. It was always going to be a big problem for Leeds coming up against a top-notch side such as Wigan, and that was clearly on show with the way they were torn up in. It was a close game, but Wigan just had too much control over that game.
Well, you have to think that Leeds were coming off a loss in Challenge Cup the week prior, so the confidence would have been down as well. And it showed that their confidence was still down as Wigan won 19 points to 6.
The influence of Jackson Hastings as well didn't also help the Rhinos' cause, with Liam Farrell still playing out of position in the centres, bagging a double, Zach Hardacre going over, and then of course Hastings getting that try on the corner, really tearing Leeds' right edge defensively up.
Whilst we're talking about Wigan Warriors and Jackson Hastings, he has now signed with the West Tigers as of 2022
onwards
as a lock, as I've heard. But he will play halves.
It's not going to last.
He will play in the halves, no doubt about that.
Luke Brooks is gone.
Yeah.
No matter what the media says, or the Tigers, he's gone.
Well, it's Hastings signing. I thought that's it. Brooks is gone. There's no official word, and as Connor said, the media says and Tigers have said that he's staying. He's gone.
And
I know we're off topic.
As for Wigan, it's not really a loss that they have lost the former Man of Steel, considering that their young academy product, Harry Smith, will actually be staying on for the next 4 years. So I definitely think this is a good opportunity for Wigan to future-proof their plans, with Hastings acting as the mentor for Harry Smith. So when he leaves and vacates that 31 jumper, Harry Smith steps up to the number 7 or the number 6, depending what happens with Tommy Lualai. Oh no, sorry, Jai Field's still wearing number 6, but
Yes.
Definitely steps up, depending what happens with Tommy Lualai on that front.
Yeah, it just proved in that game that Wigan, like Liam Farrell, like you already said, went over twice. Hastings and Hardacre. Wigan were also clearly the strongest team over Leeds. So, yeah, Leeds will be looking to bounce back next week.
One team that will definitely struggle to bounce back, unfortunately, will be Wakefield Trinity after being blown off the park by the reigning champions St Helens, 34 points to 6.
Which didn't help with Regan Grace scoring double, Kevin Naguama scoring double, Jack Wellsby and James Bentley also scoring, with Tommy Makerson kicking 4 goals and Lewis Dodd kicking 1. As for Wakefield, Jay Pitts scored and Mason Leno converted.
The interesting thing was, this game, they were 0-0 at half-time, so it definitely demonstrated that Wakefield were in this game.
And giving it to a top side.
To the top side in the Betfred Super League, but the loss of Jacob Miller, who went down with, I believe it was a knee injury that I read, that will not help Wakefield's cause. They were playing without their captain and their first choice number 6, and Saints took advantage of that on both sides of the field. The loss of Tommy Makinson will slightly hurt that he went off with injury and he's not been named in the 21 for this week's trip to Huddersfield. But with the return of Lachlan Coote and Mark Percival also being named in that side, who are both very capable goal kickers in their own rights, I don't think St Helens will be overly concerned about the loss of Tommy Makinson, despite the fact he is one of their best try-scoring weapons.
Yeah, if he's only out for like a few weeks, there'll be no dramas. Like you said, they've got it covered. St Helens have got it covered. Just as you said, 0 at half time, Wakefield could have gone on to cause
a narrow win and a major upset, but that was unfortunately not the case.
No, as we mentioned, St Helens piled on the points.
And someone who did pile on the points, the Castleford Tigers downing the Lee Centurions 52-16.
The middle of the Centurions need to get fixed up big time.
The way Liam Watts scored the opening try, that was just soft as. And it didn't stop there.
Understatement.
Because They had Daniel Smith go over. Grant Millington broke them open through the middle, targeting Jordan Thompson on Lee's right edge. And then Niall Evalds went over the score, a couple of tries. Then the fringes got hurt bad time. Daryl Alford's on one side, Gray Eden on the other. Then they split them up the middle again for Alford's second try. And then clever offloading, showing their goal line defense is weak when Jordan Turner jumped over the score.
Yeah.
And despite that, there was a limited fight back from the Lee Centurions in the back 20 minutes. It piling on 3 tries, including ooting a low grubber for Ryan Briley to go over off the back of Ben Reynolds, I believe that was. And of course, Jordan Thompson returning serve against the Castleford left edge. But apart from that, we knew there were going to be results like this for the Lee Centurions, but...
Oh, no doubt about that. We definitely knew that. And as you said, Ben Reynolds, he scored himself, set up 1 or 2, I'm not quite sure, and then he kicked 2 goals. So, you could say Castleford an utter dominant of that game, no doubt about that. And Lee were never in it.
Well, this next game, I think this was the upset of the round. Hull Kingston Rovers downing the Huddersfield Giants 25-24. And as I alluded to at the top of the program, Ben Crooks scored the fastest try in the world.
Yes.
7 seconds was all Ben Crooks needed to score Hull Kingston Rovers' first try in 7 minutes, which I believe they said in the era of Super League since 1996, that is the fastest try ever scored, and also eclipsing the NRL record for the fastest try scored, which was originally set by Kirisami Ava'a at 11 seconds back in 2017.
And then Ben Crooks later backed it up to score a double, another try.
Well, it was the same trend again. Hull Kingston Rovers jumped out in the first 26 minutes, jumped out to a 18-0 lead.
And then they either thought they had it in the bag, but somehow Huddersfield came back through and really put it on for an entertaining end to the match.
But not without controversy. Sean Kenny Dow denied at one end of the field, only for Chris McQueen to go down to the other end, seemingly knock on in the in goal, which would have been a 7-tackle set to Huddersfield. Oh, no, sorry, Hull Kingston Rovers. But what does James Childs say?
A try.
Says try. Bemuses a lot of people that they actually scored that try. And I think they might have gotten away with one there, whilst the Robins got denied at the other end.
Ooh, yes, that is true. That was a clear knock-on by Chris McQueen. What else you could say? It was a knock-on. You can't award a try from that.
The right edge of Hull KR was also threatened. By the way, Huddersfield's left edge with Jake Wardle and Darnell McIntosh were going, in combination with Lee Gaskell. Or even with Aidan Caesar coming back, it was just not enough for Huddersfield.
No. Well, it didn't help that, not Huddersfield. Hull KR got all their conversions, but it didn't help that Aidan Caesar only got 2 from 5.
And then the drop goal from Jordan Abdul with 3 minutes to go. That basically sealed off any hope of a Huddersfield comeback. And this only just puts Ian Watson under even more pressure.
But if Aidan Caesar got the other conversions, the drop goal might have not been needed from Hull KR, because Huddersfield could have won that game based on the goal kicking from Caesar. But as you said, Daniel McIntosh, he went in twice. McQueen controversially. Wardell and McGilvery, if I pronounced that correctly. And Hull KR, they got Ben Crooks a double, Mickey Lewis?
Mikey Lewis,
and Kane Leonard were the other try scorers.
That was a big moment, that Kane Leonard try.
Yes.
And speaking of big moments with back rowers, the Catalan Dragons annihilating Salford 42 points to 6. Mike McMeekin, didn't he have a game for the Catalan Dragons since making the move to the south of France from West Yorkshire? But once again, you'd have to say to Sam Tompkins, 110 running meters, 2 try assists and 5 tackle breaks, playing his part in helping to set up Fuad Yaha's hat-trick. and of course terrorising both edges of Salford, including the left edge with Tom Davies and I believe Mike McMeekin crashing his way over. No, but definitely McMeekin getting involved and setting up Tom Davies for that try, and then backing it up with Josh Drinkwater through the middle of the Salford defence.
They were picking them apart, weren't they?
They were killing them.
Absolutely. 42-6. Salford, they're 3-0? No, 0-3 to start the season.
Salford are definitely 0-3, and they've only scored one try in the last 3 matches. Even the Leeds Centurions have scored more tries than Salford at this point.
But Salford have had one good thing, that was in the Challenge Cup.
The cup win.
But that's
all it.
As I've said, the Challenge Cup is a completely different form of.
It's a knockout tournament that doesn't really have any consequence on whether or not Salford make it to Old Trafford or not. But
Catalan's
Oh yes, Fuad Yaha, definitely
a hat trick
amongst the informed wingers of the league.
And as you said, Tom Davies scored, Josh Drinkwater scored, Sam Laney has, Sammy Sonny, Laney, and Ben Garcia. What the other ones with Maloney kicking 7 goals. While for Salford, their sole try was through Harvey Livett and Morgan Hescare kicking their only goal.
And the final result from round 3 of the Betfred Super League, a 14-all draw played out between Hull FC and the Warrington Wolves. Well, this one you could say was probably the tightest of them all.
You could say that best because it was the tightest of them all.
There were so many opportunities for both Hull and Warrington to get up at one up over each other, but no one really seemed to have any answers. Jordan Lane provided an answer early for Jake Connor, but to Warrington's credit, Chris Hill also found an answer off a Darryl Clark offload.
And it was 2-all at half-time. You couldn't even split them then.
And you couldn't even split them at full-time when Jake Marmo scored an individual piece of brilliance to keep Warrington in the game on the full-time siren.
To send it into extra time.
But even then, with your choices of Blake Austin, Gareth Widdop, or Mark Sneed to kick a match-winning drop goal,
they couldn't do it.
No. 10 minutes of extra time and no one could come up with a result.
Well, one of them went nowhere near the crossbar.
Mark Sneed didn't go anywhere near it. He hit the post, but on the lower side, so he got nowhere near it.
But Warrington, they had the range and had the height, but just went wide. So.
But I think a draw is fair. These two sides, Warrington have been a bit slow after their first up result against the Castleford Tigers, but since then they have come alive in a big way. Whereas Hull FC have prided themselves on their defence, and they have shown that again. That they did not concede a drop goal, and they didn't let Warrington score or either with their defence. That played a very big part in both of those results.
Do you think if Greg Inglis played, it would have made the difference for Warrington? Who knows?
It's only conjecture at this point.
Yes.
Like conjecture that he could actually play this week against the Catalan Dragons, but more on that. Because now we've got our round 4 predictions, starting off with Wigan hosting the Castleford Tigers at the DW Stadium.
Whoa! This game is it's going to be a blockbuster match, considering Castleford absolutely destroyed
the Leeds Centurions, but this will be a class difference like no other.
And then Wigan getting their win, so...
But the good news for Wigan is Bevan French is back in the lineup for his first game of the year.
There goes alarm bells.
With moving Zach Hardacre back to the centres and Liam Farrell into the second row, Wigan will have a bit more of a natural feel about it.
So like a more of their proper side in their proper positions.
And while he didn't play a massive influence, Gareth O'Brien's injury opens the door for Danny Richardson to come back into the side to prove his worth to Darryl Powell.
Yeah, this one is, like I said, a blockbuster. 2 teams coming off wins, one coming off a bigger win than the other one. But like you said,
this will be the biggest test of Castleford's defence, considering they've only conceded close to... In the first 2 games they played, they've only conceded 2 tries, and just one more than the season average thus far against the Lee Centurions. But I can't go past Wigan at this point. I think this will be a very close game, but I think Jackson Hastings and the return of Bevan French will make this a point of difference in Adrian Lamb's favour. So I'm going to say Wigan 1-12.
I'm going the opposite way and saying Castleford will win in a 1-12 margin.
And
it's going to be a close one.
Our second game on Friday night, we have the Huddersfield Giants hosting St Helens. Oh, what a bad time for Ian Watson at the moment, coming up against the team he lost to in the grand final, and now he's got to face practically one of the best attacking sides in the league.
And have won all games this season without a loss. Huddersfield, they've shown that they can be up there with the fight to win matches, but coming up against St Helens, who's had yet another good win.
The potential return of Mark Percival as well, with the loss of Tommy Makinson, that will also be a bit of a boost for Christian Wolfstad, having lost their one of their top try scorers, and for the first part of this season, their first choice goal kicker.
Yes, being at Huddersfield Giants home game, it will help them a little bit, but not a lot, as St Helens will probably not demolish them, but not going to
There'll be a lot of I think there'll be a lot of energy taken out of this Huddersfield side, and the way St Helens will be attacking, you can't go past a 13+ margin for St Helens.
Yeah, I was going to say, being at home, Huddersfield have shown they can do it, but coming up against a top side like St Helens, it's going to be a St Helens victory. It will be 13+, but not as big as what some people might think. So I'm going to say St Helens 13+.
Fair enough. Now, I did say Friday night, but I meant to say Friday morning due to the time difference between this. Now, for the Friday night fixtures, Saturday morning, Salford at home to the Lee Centurions.
Could we see either team get a win? Because
I would have to say the Lee Centurions are closer to winning a game this year than Salford are at this point in time. The way they stuck it to the Wigan Warriors in round 1 with the injury crisis they were suffering, blown off the park by the Warrington Wolves and the Castleford Tigers, but they were able to attack in those games. Salford have only thrown up 1 try in their last 3 appearances.
That's poor. That is very, very, very poor.
And there's no way I can see it apart from... I think Lee will get their first win of the season, 1-12, with the way Salford have been attacking and defending.
Yeah, I kind of see it that way as well, because Lee have looked like the better team, as you previously mentioned. And Salford haven't been nowhere near in the contest of any of the games they've played so far this season. So it'll be a Centurions win 13+.
And the second game on Saturday, we'll have Hull KR up against the Leeds Rhinos. Well, where did Leeds go from here? When you got Reece Martin in the halves, because of the crisis that they have suffered, they need reinforcements. But I think the good news is, I think they were suggesting that Conrad Hurrell might be back for this clash against Tony Smith's side.
Well, that'll be a good boost. Whether or not if he does play, whether or not he makes a difference or not is.
But they still need Ash Handley, Jack Walker, and Robert Louis in there to really make this game competitive. But I would say Leeds have been trying, but they're just not getting the results that we saw them achieve when they might have had one or a couple of these players out. And not having the influence of Luke Gale, even with Carl Eastman playing his first game back in league after some time out, I think I'm going to go for an upset here. I think Hull KR are going to go back-to-back at 1-12.
I agree. Based on the last game, and the Challenge Cup, as the Rhinos got knocked out, and backing it up from last week didn't help either with that loss. I'm going to go with Hull KR too, I'd say a 13+ victory, Hull KR, because they have been playing their better footy than what Leeds Rhinos have in the past.
And the third game, on the other side of the River Hull, we have Hull FC up against Wakefield Trinity. Well, the big thing is Jacob Miller is going to be ruled out long term, you would have to suggest. And Wakefield, there's still all the talk about Andrew Fafita at the moment, but I don't think he'll be available to them for some time, especially with Adam Tangata playing on loan at Halifax.
Yes.
And the way Hull FC have been attacking and using both sides of the field very wisely, and Jake Connor playing very good football at fullback, you can't go past on this one a Hull FC 13+ win, and they'll definitely go at the left edge of Wakefield with Tuivasa and Andre Savelio, especially with Jake Connor on the sweep plays.
Well, with how Wakefield have been playing too this season, they haven't been really given any wins. I think they haven't had any wins.
Wakefield? No.
Yeah, no. So, and Hull FC, they've been showing that what they are capable of. So, like, I agree with Connor. A 13+ for Hull FC. No dramas there.
And our final game of round 4, the Catalan Dragons up against the Warrington Wolves. Would this be the first game we see Greg Inglis play?
Well, we said that last week, and he didn't play.
Well,
So
who knows? I think it's really conjecture, but given the way Warrington performed, and with Jake Marmo keeping them in the game and without conceding the loss, it might be hard to see Inglis still get in, depending on his match fitness, whilst Catalan will face a much stiffer opposition than they did the Salford Red Devils.
that is true. As you raised the question, is Greg Inglis going to play? I'm going to say no this week because I said yes last week and he didn't play. So I'm going to say no this week, but he might play this week. Catalan's come off of you could say a really, really good win up against Warrington. It's going to be a good one. A good close match, I feel.
I definitely agree. I think this could be your game of the round right here. Catalan against Warrington. Another clash between the 2018 Challenge Cup teams, to which Catalan beat Warrington to lift the trophy for the first time in Challenge Cup history.
Because
Catalan have been impressive defensively.
I think Catalans have been surprising a lot of people this season.
I think it's going to be very hard to decide, but I think with the influence of James Maloney and Sam Tompkins, I think Catalan are going to squeak home 1-12 here.
Yeah. I was just about to say Catalans.
I think they'll be too strong at home for the Warrington Wolves. They'll put up a fight, Inglis or no Inglis, but Catalan at home, I think that it will just be a little bit too strong for them on that front.
Yes, they will be. So Catalans will win 1-12.
Right. Well, that is full time from us. We hope you enjoy the rugby league action over the weekend, but I think this I really need to say at this point. Come April 25th, wherever you are in the world, whether you're here or you're stuck overseas, unfortunately, just take a minute just to remember how we came to enjoy this game. The men and women who sacrificed their lives so we could bring you this product and watch the game we all love.
Yes, that is very true.
And I think now will be appropriate time just to say these words that I think will be reflected on. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Well, from the Sideline Chat podcast, if you like what you heard here, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a week of rugby league action. And just remember what sacrifices were given so we could enjoy the freedom we have today.
Yes.
Hey, from Mark Henry, I'm Connor Marcellus, and this has been the Sideline Chat podcast. Until next week.
Until next week.